My hands were shaking as I brushed away my tears. I took a deep breath and tried to gather myself. I got up, but not because I wanted my angry husband to see me again. However, I could feel my knees shooting up from my husband's thrashing as I stood up. The little thing infuriated him. I was occupied working on my work report on my laptop, so I was unable to respond to his query. He believed I was ignoring him on purpose, therefore he was unable to contain his rage. That's why his rage was so intense. Instead of hitting my laptop, he gave me a punch. The force of his blow knocked me to the ground. Whenever I attempted to argue with him, he would even kick my knees. This is how it has always been, one small error, and he would lose his mind. I tried to dissolve our marriage several times, but he would always threaten me. Living with his mother, my mother-in-law, is more difficult. She doesn't care that her son is abusing her despite being completely aware of it. When her kid was poised to strike me, she never came running in to try to stop him. She would even verbally insult me whenever she had the opportunity. However, I am aware that they each have two personalities. My parents and grandparents would always treat me well when they came to visit. Naturally, they would threaten to blackmail me, brief me beforehand, and advise me to act normally. They would completely wreck my life if I threw them under the bus. My family has a lot of sway. On my mother's side, my grandparents had a generational will that was written in the 1960s. The singers and artists on my mother's side are well known and respected across the nation. They are well known and wealthy. They never wanted me to wed Samuel, my spouse. In addition to coming from a lower socioeconomic status than us, he has a history of mischievous behavior. However, we met and fell in love in college, and now, after nearly 5 years of marriage, here we are. It is anticipated that I will soon carry on the family legacy as the firstborn grandchild. I was on the verge of suffocation with the weight of my fortune, but I'm used to bearing big loads. That's so much for it. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Amelia, and I'm stuck in an abusive marriage that feels like a nightmare. Ever since I said I do at the altar, my life has been a complete debacle. How I wish I had followed my parents' advice and not married my spouse. He was so wonderful back then that there was no hint of evil in him at all. One may argue that I was duped. My spouse, Samuel, is an expert manipulator, and his mother, Rita, was the one pulling the strings behind the scenes. I have no doubt about that. They both conspire to mistreat me, even though I have done nothing wrong. They would never stop telling me that they were duped into getting married to me because they assumed we would be wealthy. I was mistaken. He wants to marry me and have my son. That was also my thought. My worst mistake in life was marrying Mother Tusk. My spouse looked directly into my eyes as he spoke those words. I was only a pawn in their devious game, and I know they intended to use me for financial gain. Ever since our marriage began, Samuel has shown his true nature. For the smallest of things, he would lose control and lash out at me with harsh words. His mother, Rita, constantly found a way to defend him, to let him mistreat me, and to strengthen his hold on me. They appear to be operating as a unit. They take great pleasure in making fun of and criticizing me. They continued to poke me not just with physical but also with verbal insults. Words that were already ingrained in my memory were phrases like worthless, useless, ugly, and boring. Every day they yell these words a lot. I am already impervious to their harshness and wickedness. Just look at me. I remember this one night when Samuel became so angry. His response to my unintentional drop of a glass of water on the carpet was nothing short of horrific. With a twisted expression of anger, he took hold of my arm and pulled me in his direction. Are you insane, or are you simply really foolish and unintelligent? Please, there was a mishap. His grasp intensified, causing anguish that I had to conceal as bruises all over my body. If only you were aware of what you were doing, there wouldn't be an accident. You work at only one job. He took hold of my head and pulled it down, toward the carpet. Do you see that? That mess was produced by you. You only managed to muck things up. Us, since you're a mess as well. Well done, Samuel. It aches. You think I'm interested. That's because, well, I don't. He released his hold on me, and I fell to the sodden carpet. My face was dripping with moisture. I started to get up, but Rita stopped me as I attempted to back away. Her tone was tinged with contempt. You were fortunate to have him. Fortunate? In what dimension do being lucky and having a relationship with Samuel have in common? My son gets a lot of grief and even a headache from you. For him, you were not a good fit. Her remarks were like poisoned daggers pointed at my already frail soul as she scoffed at me. Samuel, her darling son, was always first, of course. Oh, I just want to end everything. A phone call from an unidentified number reached me one day when I was sitting in our backyard. I answered it since I'm not one to give out my phone number to strangers, so I was taken aback. Hello? Hey, Amelia, this is Mr. Spencer, the attorney for your grandfather. I regret to notify you of your grandfather's passing. As soon as I received the news, I nearly dropped my phone. Tears filled my eyes, and my voice wavered. Are you sure, really? I find it hard to believe. How? How did this come to pass? Memories that my grandfather and I shared suddenly came flooding back into my head. The good times and even the tragic ones, like having to leave the house because I decided to wed this monster of a spouse. It still amazes me that he's not here. He came to see me here at our house last month and was kind enough to provide me a loan for renovations. My mother-in-law and ungrateful husband would not stop telling everyone how proud they were of it and how it was their money. An automobile collision occurred. It came as a shock, out of the blue. I am aware of how challenging this moment may be for you, but we must get together as soon as possible to go over the specifics of your inheritance. My eyes began to tear up with shock as I thought about the fortune I was going to acquire. I always knew that I would inherit my grandfather's wealth and heritage at some point. Yes, without a doubt. Although I don't want to talk about inheritance at this difficult moment, my grandfather's will stipulates that I must receive the bequest right now. That's all right, Amelia. Give it some time. We can make all the arrangements when you're ready. However, I'm demanding that our meeting be urgent because there is something you need to know. I know you still have to mourn for your loss, but if you can spare a little of your time, please do. Indeed, I did concur with him. I had no idea what we would discuss, but I knew it would be crucial, and I didn't want to squander any time. Before hanging up, we said a couple more hellos. Taking a deep breath, I tried to take the news in. My first feeling of loss gave way to a glimmer of resolve as I stared into the distance. I never thought I'd get this opportunity, but perhaps this is my chance to make a complete turnaround. After my inheritance, the facade of my subservient existence in this miserable home started to come apart. My husband and mother-in-law learned about my grandfather's demise. Even though it was a fake, they were really astonished. I could feel some sincerity, at least. They intended to attend during the funeral service and send flowers. I was too busy packing to hear what they were saying. It may all be an act of showing that they genuinely care, for all I know. They simply want what's mine to inherit. Rita and Samuel took advantage of my newly acquired riches, and I wasn't at all incorrect. Their behavior toward me suddenly changed in a worrying way. They tried to hide their genuine objectives while showering me with phony kindness. They expressed genuine care for me to my family while we were at my grandfather's wake. As her daughter-in-law, my mother-in-law expressed to them how much she valued me. She was quite appreciative that I married her son. Oh God, save me from all this fakeness. Even trying to do skinship with me was my hobby. He continued to round my shoulders with his arms and grasp my hand, demonstrating to my family our deep affection for one another. However, my body language and emotions suggested otherwise. Oh, I just want to get out of this hellhole. I wasn't duped. I could feel their deception and avarice underneath their feigned compassion. Their abrupt shift just confirmed what I already suspected, that they wanted my money. I made the decision to find the truth and reveal their evil plan, just like vultures circle their victim. My grandfather was still buried at the funeral home the next morning. However, I spoke with his attorney for a while. He sat down with me as soon as I arrived at the attorney's office and gave me the facts straight. Amelia, I have a crucial conversation for you to have about your inheritance. There is a letter that your grandfather wrote that is addressed to you individually. My eyes grew wide with excitement. I held onto the chair's edge with my hands. What does the letter say, Mr. Spencer? Mr. Spencer reached inside his desk to get a sealed envelope, which he gave to me. Your grandfather felt that there was a problem in your marriage. He made the decision to look into it more as he had his misgivings. I cautiously opened the mail and saw a handwritten message inside, which made my pulse race. Upon seeing my grandfather's writing, tears welled up in my eyes. He had always gone above and above to demonstrate his concern for me. As I silently read it, my expression changed from one of uncertainty to astonishment. This can't be true. Amelia, I'm afraid it is. Your grandpa found proof that Samuel and you were not really married. He submitted an application to get your inheritance. Even in his afterlife, he desired to keep you safe. At last, I started to cry, a mixture of sadness and rage. I refrained from crying, and my voice broke. I never thought it possible. Samuel seemed to adore me, I thought. I knew he changed the moment we were married, even before we were married, but when he was wooing me, I believed his intentions were sincere. His mother, Rita, also looked very sincere in those days. However, this explains why they were so hostile toward me and caused me verbal and bodily harm. Your grandpa intended you to know the truth and utilize the money to get out of that trap. I know this is hard for you to comprehend, Amelia. But hold on, are they really mistreating you? Mr. Spencer expressed his amazement in his tone. I nodded after inhaling deeply. I brushed my tears away. Indeed, they do, but I'm sure karma will give them comfort shortly. In any case, Mr. Spencer, thank you. I refuse to let their dishonesty to dictate my future. I'll compile proof and retaliate. Amelia, I respect your strength. I'll do every effort to provide you with legal help. We're going to make them pay for what they did. I straightened my back and got to my feet, full of bravery. They can't win, I promise. I'm going to defend my heritage and myself. They'll have to pay for their actions. Mr. Spencer gave a nod, adoration shining in his eyes. Amelia, you have my undying support. We'll see to it that justice is done. I walked out of his office with a purposeful gait and a clear resolve. I'm committed to finding the truth, assembling proof against Samuel and Rita, and taking back my life from the web of lies. My grandfather was ultimately laid to rest the next day. All of his inheritance will pass into my name and rights in 30 days. However, I was unable to stop Samuel from abusing me physically as soon as I got home. He continued bugging me about my inheritance, asking questions like, "Where is it?" and "Why am I not giving it to him?" I again told him that I still didn't have it, but he repeatedly smacked me in response. He would become so enraged that he would strike out violently at me. He would land most of his hits on me, emotionally and physically. The deep-set scars are concealed by long-sleeve shirts and thick makeup. I'm gathering evidence, so even though I have the luxury of hiring a lawyer now, I still allow them to abuse me. Every time I felt that he was going to hurt me, I would covertly videotape his assaults. I documented all of my injuries, both recent and old, by taking photos of them and compiling them. His mother observed everything with icy disinterest. For all this time, Samuel's harshness was sustained by her tacit support. She enjoyed the power dynamics that held me in their poisoned hold and delighted in the control they had over me. Dedicated to ending this abusive cycle, I came up with a scheme to collect proof against Samuel and Rita. I needed to remain undercover and take care not to raise any red flags. I hired a private investigator to assist me in surreptitiously recording their discussions and discovering their genuine motivations through covert recordings. Samuel started abusing me more and more as I carried out my covert operation. What had previously been contained wrath erupted into a horrific tempest that tore through our house. His fists would find their target, and I would tremble in horror, the anguish coursing through every part of my body. But I became more determined with every hit. The idea that liberation was within grasp gave me courage and resolve. With the proof I had laboriously gathered, the day of reckoning finally arrived. I went up against Rita and Samuel. "We need to talk." I held out a folder of evidence in front of them and stood tall. Rita and Samuel exchanged nervous looks, obviously surprised by my increased strength. However, they soon gave me a smug smile and made fun of me for being so forward. "Samuel and Rita, enough is enough. I am aware of the reality of our union. Everything about it was a lie, a way for you two to take advantage of my wealth." My hubby enjoyed making fun of me. "Amelia, who are you talking about? You are exaggerating." In front of them, I unfolded the packet and showed them the fake marriage license. "Samuel, I have proof. Look at the forgeries, the phone calls in private, everything. I'm able to expose your falsehoods in court by taking this up." My mother-in-law's eyes darted about anxiously, and her face turned pale. "Oh please, we meant no damage at all. Our only concern was your best interests. What's best for me? Do you define love and caring in this way? Via coercion and mistreatment. You two no longer believe you have authority over me. Your only concern was what was best for the two of you, and that is what I inherited. You're not even concerned about the suffering you've brought me." Samuel got up and walked fiercely in my direction, igniting his rage once again. Anger was twisted over his features. He clenched his jaw and lunged for my throat, but I moved aside to prevent him from touching me. "You believe you can intimidate us. Amelia, we all have our own methods. Keep us from going too far." The noise of sirens broke the silence as Samuel lifted his hands again, about to hit me. There was a victorious look on my face. "Oh, Samuel, don't worry. I've implemented safety precautions. The police are heading over." Samuel froze, terror taking the place of his rage. Fearfully, his mother grabbed Samuel's arm, and her eyes widened. "Oh, it feels so good to see them becoming the underdog now. Amelia, please refrain from calling the cops. Anything you desire, will do. Give us one opportunity, please." My eyes grew sad and determined at the same time, and my grin vanished. "Rita, it's too late to listen to your hollow assurances. It's been much too long since you revealed your actual self. It's time for the government to step in. I'll let the law make the final decision because I deserve justice." The sound of police sirens intensified a few moments later. With frightened looks, Samuel and Rita knew their doom was already decided. I spoke to them one final time while standing erect and sounding determined. "Samuel and Rita, this is the end of the line. I shall at last obtain the freedom and justice I am due, and you will pay the price for your deeds." With a plan to seize control of the situation, the cops burst through the front entrance. Rita and Samuel's cheeks grew even more pale as their chances of getting away vanished. After the authorities placed them under arrest, court cases were initiated. I described the atrocities I had gone through, including the arranged marriage and the torture I was subjected to, as I stood in front of the judge. I laid forth the shocking evidence that showed Samuel and Rita for what they really were: monsters. The judge slammed the gavel, delivering a prompt and fair decision that cemented their guilt for the crimes they had done. Rita and Samuel were found guilty of their horrible deeds. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders at that very moment, and I was filled with a fresh feeling of justice and release. I stood there no longer a victim but a survivor as the courtroom emptied. My body was covered with scars that served as a constant reminder of the struggles I had faced and the courage I had mustered. I had been enslaved to abuse for far too long, but the truth had freed me. I accepted my inheritance and rebuilt my life in a way that kept me distant from the cruelty and manipulation that had shadowed it. I also made the decision to work on myself in order to recover and develop. I committed my life to advocating for and bringing attention to domestic abuse, resolute in her mission to end the cycle for those people caught in sane circumstances. To be happy and pleased is, in my opinion, the best retaliation against your mistreatment and exploitation.
Thank you for everything. I gave my husband a respectful nod, handed him the divorce papers, and walked out of the house. He always prioritized work over everything else and never bothered with household chores. Without me, he'd surely struggle. Let him see just how helpless he is. My name is Susan. I quit my job right after we got married to become a homemaker. My husband, Robert, was my former boss, renowned for his exceptional work ethic. From the moment I started working under Robert, he was always supportive, offering advice and eventually inviting me out for private dinners. Our relationship began in secret, but we made it public when we decided to get married. When I announced our engagement, many of my female colleagues were envious. Becoming a homemaker was Robert's idea. However, once our married life began, Robert's attitude shifted. "You just lounge around at home and still get to eat. You're really lucky. Who do you think provides for this lifestyle? You should be grateful to me," he'd say. If I tried to go out on a weekday, he'd look displeased. "Going out for lunch while I'm working? Who do you think earns the money for that lunch? Think about it," he'd remark. I started to feel reluctant to go out, fearing Robert's reaction, and I began to stay home more. Is this my life now, just waiting for Robert to come home? I couldn't stand it. I felt a strong need for change, so I decided to work outside the home again. But Robert wouldn't hear of it. "You want to work. Is my salary not enough for you?" he demanded. "That's not it," I tried to explain desperately. "I feel suffocated staying at home all the time." "You think of work as just a breather? Are you taking it lightly?" he accused, but I knew that if I backed down, nothing would change. I pleaded with Robert, and after much persuasion, he finally agreed to let me work part-time on the condition that I wouldn't neglect the household chores. Returning to work after so long was nerve-wracking, but it was also refreshing. I worked hard to ensure Robert had no complaints about the housework after my part-time job. It was tough at first, but gradually, I found my rhythm. Around that time, Robert's mother passed away. I informed my part-time job of the sad news and asked for some time off, which they kindly granted. I shuttled back and forth between Robert's family home and ours, preparing for the funeral and taking care of my father-in-law. After the funeral, Robert told me, "You only need to visit my family home every other day. Daily cleaning and laundry aren't necessary, right? Just prepare meals that my dad can easily heat up." He seemed worried that his needs would be neglected if I visited his family home daily. When I told Robert that continuing to care for his father would jeopardize my part-time job, he responded with irritation. "It doesn't matter if 1 or 2 employees are absent, right? Just reduce your working days. If they complain, quit. It's not like you're earning much. It's just a breather for you." Reluctantly, I reduced my working days, but I felt guilty for constantly asking for flexibility. I wished my father-in-law could take care of himself, but he was adamant that household chores were a woman's job. He wouldn't do any cleaning or laundry, and he was picky about food. "This is too salty," or "I want something else," were common complaints. Because of this, I often returned home late from his place. One day, my father-in-law refused to eat the pot roast 2 days in a row, so I had to prepare another meal, making me late. When I finally got home, Robert was already there, and he was furious. "You're late. What were you doing? Where's my dinner?" he shouted. "I'm sorry," I stammered. "Father-in-law wanted something different, so I had to make another meal. I'll serve dinner right away." I served Robert the pot roast I had brought back. He looked at it with disdain. "What's this? You promised to take care of the house as usual, right? If this happens again, you'll have to quit your part-time job." "Wait a minute," I said, my frustration rising. "I was late because I went to your family home, not because of my part-time job." Inaki snapped. "You're stretched thin because of that part-time job. Don't ever make me wait again after I come home from work." I knew arguing wouldn't change his mind, but I couldn't accept it. I continued juggling household chores, caring for my father-in-law, and managing my part-time job, sacrificing sleep to keep up. Then, one day, I received an unexpected call from my mom. "Susan, your dad's been diagnosed with a severe illness and needs to be hospitalized," she said, her voice trembling. I learned that Dad's cancer was advanced and beyond treatment. I wanted to visit him immediately, but Robert was unsympathetic. "Visiting him won't change anything. Focus on our home." Reluctantly, I took early leaves from my part-time job to visit Dad. Half a year later, he passed away. While helping my devastated mom with the funeral preparations, I informed Robert about the funeral date. His response was chilling. "You'll be back before I return from work, right? I don't want to wait for dinner again." "You're attending the funeral too, right?" I asked, hoping for some support. "Why would I? It's a weekday and I have work," he replied coldly. "My dad just passed away. Can't you take paid leave?" I pleaded. "In theory, yes, but I have important meetings. It's not that simple." "It should be a priority to bid farewell to a family member. When your mom passed, I took several days off and adjusted my work schedule for you." Robert scoffed. "Don't compare your part-time job to mine. I have responsibilities you wouldn't understand. I can't just take time off." After more pleading, he finally relented. "Fine, I'll take a few hours off for the funeral then," he said, forcibly ending the conversation. With the funeral preparations, I visited my family home more often, took more days off from work, and reduced my visits to my father-in-law to every third day. Consequently, I could only manage household chores every third day. Robert grew more irritable. "You've been slacking off with the chores. You haven't cleaned in 2 days." "I was helping Mom all day 2 days ago and visited father-in-law yesterday," I explained, desperate to make him understand. "Excuses again. Your mom has been managing the house for years. Why does she need so much help now?" "After Dad's passing, she's too devastated to do anything. I want to be there for her." Robert dismissed her grief. "She's just being weak. Your dad's illness wasn't sudden. She should have been prepared." "This is why I say woman." "How can you say that?" I interrupted, my voice shaking with anger. "Even if she knew, losing a lifelong partner is devastating. Can't you understand her feelings? I'm saying she should face reality. Your dad should have planned better. Leaving without preparing his wife is irresponsible." I stared at him horrified. "How can you speak of my family like that? Don't you have any respect for them?" "What's there to respect?" Robert sneered. "Just because they're older? That's naive thinking." His words cut deep, and something snapped inside me. "How can you say that? Not just about my mom, but also about my dad, who passed away after a long illness." That was the moment I decided to cut ties with Robert. I couldn't talk to him anymore. Just being in the same room with him made my skin crawl. I began to secretly prepare to leave the house, using the funeral preparations as a cover. Quietly, I started moving my belongings to my parents' home. It was difficult to tell my grieving mom about the current situation, but I couldn't bear it any longer. Robert's attitude had become unbearable, and I wanted to move back home. When I finally confided in my mom, she comforted me, saying, "You've done well so far. If Susan wants to come back, I'd be more than happy. It won't be lonely here with you." "Thank you, Mom," I replied, feeling a sense of relief. It's better to free yourself from Robert and find new happiness than to force a marriage. With her words of encouragement, I felt reassured and continued my preparations to leave. I kept my emotions in check, flawlessly handling household chores and taking care of my father-in-law. It was just a little longer to endure. As long as I maintained the housework, Robert didn't complain, and we avoided unnecessary conversations. On the day of the funeral, after briefly paying his respects, Robert returned to work without much of a goodbye. "Robert, you're really going back to work?" my mom asked, disappointed. Even though she knew about our situation, she had hoped he would take a break from work during this time. "Apparently, that's what he thinks is appropriate," I said indifferently. Hearing my comment, my mom replied, "Well, I guess there's nothing we can do." We both felt reassured that our decision to divorce was the right one. After the funeral, Robert returned from work as usual. "I'm back," he announced. "Welcome home," I replied curtly. "Welcome home? That's it. I took time off work for the funeral because of you." "You should thank me," he demanded. "Thank you," I said, forcing the words out. "Yes, your family interfered with my work." "Now say it." Robert sat arrogantly on the sofa, waiting for my response. I bowed slightly and said, "Thank you for everything so far." "What did you just say? So far? What do you mean? He asked, confused. Without hesitation, I handed Robert the divorce papers. Divorce papers? What's this about? It means exactly what it says. I want a divorce, I replied calmly. Robert burst into laughter. You think you can live without my money? If you have time for jokes, make dinner. I'm serious. I'm leaving to live with my mom. She's okay with it. I've saved some money from my part-time job, and they're considering offering me a full-time position. A full-time job? For someone as inefficient as you, he scoffed. Goodbye, I said, handing the stunned Robert the divorce papers before leaving with just one bag. When I arrived at my parents' house, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I spent the evening talking with my mom about my hardships and sharing memories of my dad. Robert kept contacting me, but I ignored all his messages. His words were still condescending. How can a wife leave her husband like that? Apologize and come back, and I'll forgive you this time. Ignoring him was the right choice. Robert never came to my parents' house. His pride wouldn't allow it. Thanks to that, my mom and I lived peacefully. A few days later, I realized I had left something at the house and decided to sneak back while Robert was at work. When I walked in, the place was a disaster. Garbage and dust covered every surface. Fast food wrappers littered the kitchen, and wrinkled clothes were strewn across the floor. It was clear Robert hadn't done any housework. Concerned, I wondered how his dad was managing. As I passed by Robert's family home, I saw his dad talking with a caretaker at the entrance. Apparently, there had been complaints from neighbors about a foul smell coming from his trash-filled room. If things don't improve, you'll need to leave immediately, the caretaker warned. I understand. I'll go to my son's place, his dad replied. I couldn't help but think, if his dad moves in, it'll just be another man who can't do housework, and the trash will pile up even more. Later, I heard from neighbors that Robert's father had packed his bags and tried to move in with Robert. However, Robert refused, leading to a big argument. Their dispute over living arrangements became the talk of the neighborhood, and eventually, Robert had to compromise. They ended up living together, but as expected, Robert's house turned into a trash heap, causing a stench that bothered the neighbors. Robert, now going to work in wrinkled and dirty shirts, quickly lost respect from those around him. There were even rumors of him being demoted at work. One day, Robert came to my parents' house to apologize. Susan, I was wrong, he began, but then, in a condescending tone, added, Are you satisfied now? I apologized. Now fix your attitude and come back. It was clear Robert hadn't changed at all. What exactly did you reflect on? I asked calmly. What? Why are you acting so high and mighty? You didn't just give a shallow apology, did you? I pressed. Robert was speechless. Please go home. I have no intention of returning to that house. But without you, the house is a mess, and there's my dad to take care of, he pleaded. You just want me back to take care of you and your dad, right? Ah well. You might think you're competent at work, but if you can't manage your own life, you're worse than a child. What? How dare you talk to your husband like that? Not husband. Ex-husband. We're getting a divorce, so we're strangers now. Wait, I don't want a divorce. Shut up, I am not your servant. You always look down on homemakers. Men like you, stuck in the past and domineering, should just be buried in your trash-filled houses. Stay away from me, you arrogant jerk. I shouted at Robert, then locked the door behind him. When I turned around, my mom was clapping. Well done, she said with a smile. After that, I started the divorce mediation process. Fortunately, the offer for a full-time position progressed smoothly, and it seemed I could earn enough to live comfortably with my mom. My mom, who had been down after losing my dad, was gradually regaining her spirits now that I was back. Life with just the two of us became fulfilling and joyful. According to my lawyer, Robert and his dad are still living in their trash-filled house, now known in the neighborhood as the useless father-son duo. They're the subject of gossip. Robert, unable to sleep properly because of the mess, is always sleep-deprived. As a result, he made a significant mistake at work and was forced to resign. Without the means to hire a housekeeper, their future looks bleak. Looking back, I feel foolish for trying so hard to please Robert. I'm grateful to have escaped a life of constant endurance. From now on, I'll live my life to the fullest. During the first New Year's after marrying my husband James, I realized I'd been deceived. While helping with the holiday meal in the kitchen, my sister-in-law, Emily, made a snide remark. "Susan, are you bad at cooking? Make the presentation nicer. It's killing my appetite." I'm no culinary genius, and I struggle with presentation, but I was doing my best. Her comment felt unnecessary, especially in front of the other female relatives. I responded, "Oh, I'm sorry. I usually don't pay much attention to that. I would appreciate some guidance." Just as I sincerely asked for help, my mother-in-law Tiffany interrupted. "Plating food is basic, right? Especially when it's James' favorite dish. You've never cooked it at home, so you don't have a sense of how to plate it, do you? Poor James, he married a wife who can't even cook properly. There's a reason you've been divorced before, you know. Did your ex-husband cheat on you because he got tired of your bad cooking and careless personality?" Tiffany and Emily took turns making these remarks before finally walking away, looking annoyed. They complained but never actually helped. Instead, another female relative stepped in to assist me. What surprised me more than their criticism of my cooking was the drastic change in their attitude towards me. 6 months ago, I remarried after divorcing my cheating ex-husband 2 years prior. When I met James, who was younger than me, we quickly hit it off and began talking about marriage. We both love spending time outdoors, so we went fishing and camping together. We decided to get married. James is active but kind, and I felt comfortable around him. I was initially worried whether his family would accept me as a divorcee, but when I visited his family home, they welcomed me warmly, and my worries vanished. "It's nice to meet you, Susan. If you're okay with our son, please marry him. Good for you, James, you found a kind wife." Their warmth put me at ease. I had some interactions with my previous husband's family, but we never grew close. They were wealthy and formal, and I, being an ordinary person, couldn't fully understand their values, so I was honestly concerned about getting along with this new family. But I thought everything would be fine since they welcomed me so warmly. That sense of security, however, must have been fake. Throughout my stay, Tiffany and Emily kept badmouthing me. I was shocked by their change in attitude, especially on the night of January 3rd. When I finally returned home, I felt such a wave of relief that I nearly cried. By August, during summer vacation, my husband suggested we visit his family again. My anger and sadness have faded, and I convinced myself that maybe they were just stressed out during the New Year's incident. It wasn't worth dwelling on the past. Although I was still a bit scared of Tiffany and Emily, I thought I could manage a few days with them. So I agreed to accompany my husband back to his family home. Determined to make things better, I decided we should buy lots of gifts to bring with us, hoping it would lead to pleasant conversations and a fresh start. I tried to convince myself that the New Year's incident was just a bad dream. That positive thinking carried me through the drive to my in-laws' home, which is in a coastal town in a neighboring state. We drove for half the day and due to traffic, arrived in the evening. When we got there, Tiffany greeted us warmly. "Welcome home, James," Susan, she said, smiling happily to see her son after a long time. She even gave me a kind smile, and Emily, standing next to her, accepted the gifts with a polite thank you. I felt relieved. I had been right. They must have just been in a bad mood that day. "James, your dad and the uncles are at their usual bar. Why don't you join them? They've all been looking forward to seeing you," Tiffany suggested. "Really? Hey, Susan, do you want to come along?" James asked gently. I was planning to go, but Tiffany interjected. "Oh, we were thinking of having a girls-only time." I thought Susan might enjoy that more. "If that's the case, go ahead, James. Have fun," I said, trying to sound enthusiastic. James hesitated, looking like he wanted to say something, but eventually left alone, saying if Susan is okay with it. After seeing him off, I tidied up a bit and then headed to the living room for the girls-only time that Tiffany mentioned. Tiffany, since it's girls only, is there something I should do?" I asked, trying to be helpful. She smiled and said, "I was thinking of making some tea. Could you pick some herbs from the garden? The ones with white flowers. Oh, and Susan, while you're at it, could you feed the dog?" They had a large dog at their home, and it had taken a liking to me, which I found adorable. Growing up, I always wanted a dog but could never afford one, so I was genuinely happy to take care of him. "Sure, I'll head to the garden," I replied. I grabbed a bowl for the herbs and a plate for the dog food, put on my sandals, and stepped outside into the garden. As I busied myself with the tasks, I suddenly heard the sound of a lock clicking behind me. I turned around in a panic and saw Tiffany and Emily watching me through the window smirking. That's when I realized I had been tricked again. They had intentionally sent me outside, even sending James away, under the guise of a girls' only time, all just to lock me out. Tiffany and Emily were terrible people who took pleasure in such childish malice. The ridicule during New Year's, mocking me for being divorced and bad at cooking, had been mere words. But this time they had taken it further by physically locking me out. Come on, this is a joke, right? Let me in. I knocked on the window, but they didn't budge. A woman like you, raised by a single parent and bad at housework, doesn't belong in our home. We don't need to feed you or give you a place to sleep. If you still want to stay, why not sleep in the doghouse? It's large enough for someone as petite as you, Tiffany taunted. Emily clapped her hands and laughed. Susan, you've become a dog. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This was cruel, beyond cruel. Stop it, please. I begged, but they only laughed harder. But they just laughed and then unlocked the door. I stood there, wondering whether I should go back inside. But I realized that even if I did, they would probably continue to mistreat me. Then it hit me. I still had my car keys in my pocket. If I couldn't go inside the house or join my husband, I could just stay outside instead. I walked over to the car and retrieved something, quickly setting it up. The noise I was making caught Tiffany and Emily's attention, and they opened the curtains to see what was going on. What on earth is she doing? Tiffany exclaimed, covering her mouth in astonishment. She had good reason to be surprised. What I had taken out of the car was the tent we had used on our recent camping trip. They probably never expected me to opt for outdoor comfort. Stop it. You're ruining the lawn. You're so rude. You're never setting foot in this house again, Tiffany yelled. Ignoring their protests, I decided to make myself some hot coffee using the small camping stove I had left in the car. Despite it being summer, the cloudy day had turned into a chilly evening, making the hot coffee especially satisfying. Before I knew it, the family dog, who had come out of the doghouse, wandered over to warm up by the fire. Sorry for the noise. Oh right, I was supposed to feed you, wasn't I? Here you go, I said, putting the plate of dog food in front of him. As the dog started eating, I petted him, and he let out a happy little bark. I had thought I had no allies in this house, but with this big, gentle dog by my side, I felt comforted. However, I realized that my husband had left in the evening, and if he was drinking, he wouldn't be back for a while. Let's go into the tent. You can come too, I said to the dog. We both lay down in the tent, and as I petted him, I noticed that despite his fluffy fur, he was quite thin. It must have been a long time since he had received any affection, and he seemed so happy to be petted. I started worrying more about this dog than about myself. Shall we go find them? No point staying here, I said. The dog probably didn't understand my words, but he barked and nudged me forward as if encouraging me. I folded up the tent, got in the car with the dog, and drove into town. I parked in a random lot and began walking around with the dog, trying to find the bar where my husband and his relatives were. There are so many bars, it's hard to tell, I said to the dog as we walked. But he seemed to recognize something, either their scent or their voices, because he led the way. Sure enough, as we approached one bar, I heard familiar voices, my father-in-law, Thomas, and my husband James. When I entered the bar, my husband looked surprised. Susan, what are you doing here? And he brought the dog. I felt a wave of relief at finally seeing someone I could trust, but there was something else on my mind. Is this place pet-friendly? Can the dog and I come in? The bar's policy was against it, but since Thomas and his relatives were regulars, they made an exception. Susan, it must have been cold outside. Here, have a drink, someone said, handing me a glass. I took a sip, and the drink was delicious, not just because of the taste, but because of the kindness I felt from my husband's relatives, who were meeting me for the first time. They encouraged me to have another glass, and then another, until I felt the alcohol starting to take effect. As I got tipsy, I began to let down my guard and spoke up about what had been bothering me. Tiffany and Emily locked us out, so we had no choice but to come here. I said, my words spilling out uncontrollably. I couldn't stop talking about everything that had happened, from today to the awful experience on New Year's. Normally, I might have worried about being judged for airing these grievances, but in that moment, I didn't care. My husband, Thomas, and the others listened intently as I spoke. When I finished, one of the relatives sighed and said, Those two are at it again. That comment seemed to open the floodgates, and they started sharing stories about Tiffany and Emily's past behavior. They even recalled how the two had acted similarly when they were supposed to be taking care of James's grandmother. Eventually, James's grandmother moved into a nursing home because she couldn't handle Tiffany and Emily's behavior any longer. It wasn't just her. Someone mentioned that they didn't even take care of the dog. They left it all to their husbands. Hearing this, Thomas, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up. I thought about divorcing them when they mistreated my mother, but what they did to you, my son's wife, is unforgivable. I can't take it anymore. Thomas stood up, resolute. When we returned home, he finally confronted Tiffany and Emily. Let's get a divorce. Leave now. Tiffany and Emily fought back. Susan is also to blame. She set up a tent and even took the dog into town. That's so unreasonable. But Thomas didn't waver. I don't see it that way. Kicking someone out into the cold is what's unreasonable. What do you think family is? I wanted to get along with you, but I've reached my limit. I don't want to consider people like you as family. Tiffany and Emily glared at me, but then they screamed. The dog had growled at them. Thomas looked at them with disdain. You never took care of that dog. You didn't feed him or walk him. You're not even worthy of being his owner. It serves you right to be growled at. You're not part of this family. Leave now. With that, Thomas made them pack their bags and kick them out, regardless of the late hour. Tiffany and Emily didn't argue. Thomas was too intimidating. They didn't have much in the way of assets, so they ended up living in a small apartment to save money. But being spendthrifts, they soon ran into financial difficulties. Now, Tiffany not only has to worry about everyday expenses, but she also has to pay alimony. She's probably struggling, and both she and Emily are working hard at jobs they aren't used to. As for me, with Tiffany and Emily gone, my husband and I decided to move in with Thomas so he wouldn't be lonely. Changing jobs was a concern, but I found a new one sooner than expected, which was a relief. Since moving, life has been joyful every day, surrounded by kind-hearted Thomas, my loving husband, and our pet dog, who has become like a dear friend to me. Relatives also started visiting more often, and I've come to enjoy learning about various delicious drinks and having lively conversations over them. It has become one of my favorite hobbies. Hey Grandma, are your potatoes ready? Yep, they turned out delicious again this year. I've got plenty, so feel free to share some with your friends. Awesome Grandma, everyone loves your potatoes. They'll be thrilled. Kyle, my grandson, cheerfully ran off with a grin. He's a 6th grader who loves soccer. I'm Bella, 65 years old. I lost my husband to illness 3 years ago, but he left me enough to live comfortably on survivor benefits. My only child is my son Clive, who's 40, happily married to Lizzie and the father of young Kyle. Right now, I live alone in the apartment unit my late husband left behind. Clive and his family live next door in the same 8-unit building. We're close enough that we often share meals, making it feel like a multi-generational home. Lizzie is from Montana and has a strong sense of local pride. Being from Idaho, I can't help but feel like a rival in her eyes, and she's always trying to one-up me. My son Clive just laughs at our antics, often saying, "You two are at it again." Huh. We were a pretty normal family until a big issue arose regarding where Kyle should go for middle school. Lizzie, possibly influenced by others, wanted to enroll him in a prestigious private school. Sure, it could set him up for a top high school and college, but Kyle wanted to attend a school known for its soccer program. I wanted to respect his wishes, but Clive felt torn between Lizzie and me. One evening during dinner, Lizzie had prepared Montana-raised buffalo meat, staying true to her roots. I couldn't resist teasing. I prefer Idaho steak, you know. Oh, just regular beef steak, Lizzie shot back. You're from Idaho, so of course you'd say that. What else is there in Idaho besides potatoes? Excuse me? Montana's got nothing but buffalo and elk. Don't act like you're better, I replied laughing. Clive, acting as the referee, jumped in. Can you two cut it out? Why does it always turn into a my state's better than your state argument every time you meet? Even our grandson Kyle chimed in, supporting both sides with his adorable smile. It's hard to believe he was born from someone as ridiculous as Lizzie. And then came the usual catchphrase at the end, raised on nothing but Idaho potatoes. As the dinner continued, Lizzie and I ate in silence while Clive chatted with Kyle. So what's going on lately? You're graduating elementary school soon. Got any plans for middle school? Clive asked. Yeah, I'll probably go to the local middle school, but the class president, Tavan, is going to a private middle school in the city, Kyle replied. You can go to a private school if you want, Clive suggested. I'd rather go to a school that's good at soccer, Kyle admitted. Lizzie's eyes sparkled as she said, Don't aim for being a jock. Focus on your studies, get into a good college, and become a senior-level government official. You'll have a stable income, and I can rest easy. But I want to be a Major League Soccer player, Kyle protested. Oh, a soccer player, huh? I chimed in. Most athletes retire before they're 40. A stable government job is way better than gambling on a sports career. But I really love soccer. I want to play in middle and high school, whether I turn pro or not, Kyle insisted. Forget about that. You should be aiming for a prestigious private middle school. You'll be on the right track to an elite life, Lizzie argued. Clive, starting to agree with Lizzie, added, I get it. Stability is valuable these days. I knew I had to hold the fort for Kyle. What's important is how Kyle feels, and we should respect that, I said. So you're saying it's okay if Kyle doesn't go to college? Lizzie shot back. It's only natural for parents to want their child to go to college, right? So Grandma, maybe you shouldn't interfere too much with our decisions. Clive stepped in again. We're responsible for Kyle's future. So Mom, we'll consider your opinion, but don't push too hard. Oh my, it seemed like a win for Lizzie. But the silver lining was when Kyle said to me, Grandma, you really do think about me, don't you? Thanks so much. I felt like crying when I heard those words from my grandson. Darn it, I couldn't back down now. I thought as I bit into the slightly overcooked and charred buffalo meat, muttering to myself, you got this, like a mantra. But from that day on, Lizzie's behavior changed abruptly. Kyle stopped coming to my room to hang out, and Lizzie forbade him from entering. Soon after, Kyle began attending more after-school tutoring sessions at a cram school that specialized in preparing kids for private middle schools. Naturally, this wasn't cheap. Clive had gone to a decent college and worked at an okay company, but he hadn't climbed the corporate ladder due to his timid personality. Their income was average, and while we didn't have to worry much about housing expenses, sending Kyle to a private school would be a stretch. I could sense that they were planning to have me foot the bill. I mean, we're stretched thin as it is. If you care about your grandson, maybe you can help us out. Lizzie was bound to say that sooner or later. Then one day, Lizzie came into my room holding some snacks. The afternoon was drifting by, but there was definitely tension in the air. As I crunched on one of the cookies she brought, Lizzie started, So about Kyle. What about him? You told me not to interfere, remember? I replied, keeping my tone neutral. Yes, but private middle school is expensive. Clive's salary won't cover it, Lizzie said, her voice strained. We went back and forth, each trying to maintain the upper hand. This isn't new information, Lizzie. You knew this already. What's going on? You're college educated, aren't you? I confronted her, fully prepared for a showdown. True, but times are tough. The cost of living keeps rising. I might need to find part-time work, Lizzie replied, her tone uncertain. Was she trying to bluff? I wondered. Well, you're young, Lizzie. Kyle is growing up. Maybe it's good for you to go out and work. I tried to counter bluff. But a part-time job won't bring in much money. I want something more stable, Lizzie retorted, frustration creeping into her voice. I had enough of the beating around the bush. So what if we use the income from this apartment to cover Kyle's tuition? I asked directly. Why are you discussing this with me? Isn't this something your own family should discuss? I responded, my voice tinged with disbelief. That's when I saw a glint in Lizzie's eyes. What if we rent out your room, Bella? Then we could use that extra rent to help pay for Kyle's school, she suggested. You want me to leave? Does Clive agree with this? I felt like my breath had been taken away. You have a pension, Bella. You're doing fine, so if you agree to cover Kyle's tuition, you can stay. Otherwise, we'll need you to move, she said, her voice cold. This is so sudden. What do you expect me to do? I stammered, struggling to process her words. Don't you love Kyle? Think about his future. It's either you leave or help with the expenses. We need an answer soon. Kyle's exams have already started, Lizzie added before leaving my room with a triumphant look on her face. Once she was gone, I remembered how to breathe again. I loved my grandson Kyle, of course. I wasn't neglecting the issue at all. When I thought about it being for my grandson, Lizzie's perspective did somewhat make sense. Still, I'm not someone who just nods along easily. I pondered what the best course of action would be. Kyle was about to hit adolescence, and I'd noticed he had been acting a certain way around his childhood friend, Vicky. I'll use Vicky as bait to see what happens, I thought. One day, I came across Vicky and Lizzie chatting in the park. Lizzie was doing most of the talking, with Vicky just nodding from time to time. Finally, it seemed like they had a real conversation, and Lizzie left with a smile, patting Vicky on the head. I approached Vicky after Lizzie had walked away. Vicky, oh, Kyle's grandma. Hi there. Vicky's face lit up when she saw me. It's been a while. With graduation coming up for you, you must be busy, huh? I asked. Yeah. Kyle's mom just suggested that maybe I should go to the same school as Kyle, Vicky replied. Really? Well, Kyle hasn't made up his mind yet. He's so indecisive, I said, testing the waters. Really? Kyle's mom said he's set to go to the prestigious Phillips Academy. She thinks I should go there too, Vicky shared, her voice filled with uncertainty. So Lizzie and I have the same opinion, I mused. Do you want to go to the same school as Kyle? I asked. If I can, I would love to go to the same school. But I'm not as smart as Kyle, Vicky admitted, looking down. The innocent heart of a young girl. I remember feeling the same way at her age. Kyle hasn't decided on Phillips Academy. He's more into soccer. My guess is he'll probably opt for Noble and Greenway School, I told her. Really? If it's that school, I might stand a chance. Vicky's eyes sparkled with hope. Yes, Grandma doesn't lie, I assured her. Vicky looked down again. But Kyle's mom told me that if I get into Phillips Academy, it would make Kyle happy, so I should try my best. No, it's the other way around, I said gently. Lizzie wants to use you to get Kyle into a prestigious school. Kyle likes you, so Lizzie thinks if you go there, it'll motivate him. Kyle likes me, is that true? Vicky blushed at my words, her face glowing with excitement. The purity of youth. It reminds me of my own teenage years, I thought. He doesn't hold my hand anymore. He's been mean, doing things like throwing balls at me and pulling my hair. Vicky confessed. Well, that's how you know he likes you. Boys his age are basically silly. They can't say they like you, so they act mean to get attention, I explained, smiling. Really? Vicky asked, her eyes wide with disbelief. Yes, really. At your age, girls mature faster than boys, so while you're growing up, the boys are still kids. I've had similar experiences when I was your age, I assured her. I see, so when Kyle is mean to me, I should just smile and say, You're such a kid. Huh? Vicky asked, a small smile forming on her lips. He'll start being nicer once he knows you won't react to his teasing, I added. Okay, thanks, Grandma. Vicky beamed at me. You're welcome. Thank you for caring about Kyle. I think you two will be together for a long time, I said warmly. Then, bending down to whisper in Vicky's ear, I added, and besides, Grandma would be delighted if you became Kyle's wife. Vicky's face turned even redder as she stammered, No, wait. Maggie. But well, you're going to turn out to be a wonderful woman, Vicky. Mark my words, I said, smiling at her. Thanks, Grandma. Vicky waved her hand and headed home. Watching her leave made me feel nostalgic, even though I was 65. Later, during dinner, Lizzie brought up the subject again. So Kyle, it seems Vicky might be going to Phillips Academy too. Maybe you should consider it if she's going, Lizzie hinted at Kyle. It doesn't matter. She can do whatever she wants, Kyle replied, not looking up from his plate. You like Vicky, don't you? Wouldn't it be nice to go to the same school? Lizzie persisted. I don't like her. She's annoying, Kyle shot back. Really? You both said you'd get married back in kindergarten. Why not go to the same middle school? Lizzie pushed, a bit too eagerly. What are you talking about? That was just child's play. You're crazy, Mom. Kyle exclaimed, frustration creeping into his voice. Don't you think Vicky's parents would be happy? You two have been together since kindergarten. Lizzie continued, undeterred. Are we talking about marriage or middle school? Kyle asked, clearly exasperated. Both. I would be happy to, Lizzie responded, her tone softening. Kyle was firm. I have dreams for the future, and I want to go to a prestigious school known for soccer. Lizzie's voice grew anxious. Well, that worries me. My life, my choice. My dream is to win the World Cup, Kyle declared, his voice full of determination. That's so unrealistic. Only a few become pros. Lizzie retorted, her voice rising. So following your logic, I'd definitely be happy. You're deciding my life for me? No thanks. Kyle shot back, crossing his arms. How could you say that? I'm only thinking about your well-being, Lizzie said, her voice quivering. Then support my dream. I want you to root for me, Kyle replied, his voice softer but still resolute. In response to Kyle's feelings, I decided to step in. I'll support you, Kyle. You learned to kick a ball before you could throw one. You can totally be a soccer player. Thanks, Grandma, Kyle said, smiling for the first time during the conversation. Don't forget to focus on your studies. Soccer isn't just physical. Clive joined in, offering his support. I will. I have to speak Spanish if I want to play overseas, Kyle replied, his excitement returning. How wonderful, my dear grandson. I beamed at him. In the midst of this lively discussion, only Lizzie was mumbling something under her breath. Kyle then mentioned something interesting. Vicky recently developed an interest in soccer. How amazing. If he joined the U.S. men's national team and Vicky the women's, I thought, amused by the idea. Just as I was lost in this thought, Lizzie came into my room. Bella, it's about Kyle, Lizzie started, her voice tense. What happened? I asked, already weary of where this conversation might lead. It's about the tuition for his private middle school. We talked about this before, remember? Lizzie said, her voice growing more assertive. I told you no. You and Clive can pay for it. Maybe get a part-time job, I responded firmly. Lizzie looked distressed. I'm emotionally fragile, so dealing with workplace relationships would probably make me sick. I doubt I could handle a job. What was she talking about? She's thick-skinned enough to aim for my savings, I thought to myself, growing more irritated. So it's pretty much down to two options here. Either you pay, or we move out to increase the rent income. Lizzie declared, her tone sharp. I'm sorry, but it's a parent's job to take care of their child. You both are parents, and you can't even raise one kid. You're failing as parents, I said, not holding back. If you have time to say that, then I'd like you to leave this room, Lizzie shot back, her patience clearly wearing thin. Bella, you have enough assets to live comfortably even if you move out, right? Why don't you consider a senior home? I'm not going to take care of you. Don't worry, I never planned on asking you anyway, I replied, keeping my voice calm. I thought you'd say that, so I've already made arrangements, Lizzie said, pulling out a stack of brochures from her bag. Arrangements? I asked, my curiosity piqued. Lizzie then placed the brochures on the table. These are nursing home brochures. Pick one and move out, will you? I'm sorry, but I have no plans to move, I replied, my voice steady. Don't you care about your grandchild? Lizzie asked, her tone accusatory. I'm here because I do care about my grandchild. Kyle is a good kid. He appreciates me and loves the roasted potatoes I make, I said, my voice softening as I thought of Kyle. It's because he eats those potatoes all the time that he thinks Idaho is some backwater place, Lizzie snapped. Says someone from Montana, where they only have buffalo. I countered, unable to resist the jab. Just then, we heard Kyle's voice. Grandma, I'm home, he called out. Kyle had returned home at the perfect moment. Ah, Kyle, welcome home. Lizzie, still irritated, asked, Why do you go to Grandma's instead of coming home? Because you don't give me snacks, but Grandma gives me roast potatoes, Kyle replied, completely unaware of the tension in the room. Gosh dang it, Lizzie muttered under her breath, clearly frustrated. I couldn't help but smile as I smugly served some roasted potatoes. Here you go, I made some today too. This is it. Even my friends say Idaho potatoes are a great snack. They're sweet, filling, and good for you, Kyle said, enjoying the food. Yep, they're rich in dietary fiber. They help strengthen your stomach so you can enjoy all kinds of food, I added, feeling proud. Oh, no wonder I enjoy Mom's food more. It's not that she got better at cooking, Kyle said innocently, making Lizzie bristle. Gosh dang it, Lizzie muttered again. Go on, Kyle, keep it up, I encouraged him. Lizzie, clearly at her wits' end, said, Anyway, I'll discuss this matter with my husband, so please have a decision by next time. With that, she stormed out of the room. Then, one day, I saw Kyle and Vicky at the park. Kyle was teaching Vicky how to play soccer, both of them chasing the ball with smiles on their faces. Lizzie suddenly appeared and approached me. She looked mad, as if she was snorting angrily. "Bella, where have you been?" she demanded. "Just out shopping." "Why?" I replied, sensing trouble. "Please be prepared for an important conversation after dinner tonight," Lizzie said, her voice tight with barely contained anger. Okay, I said, watching her leave, even angrier than before. I was dumbfounded by her sudden rage. Kyle and Vicky then came over. "What happened? Are you fighting with Mom again?" Kyle asked, concerned. "Well, it shows how close we are," I said, trying to downplay the situation. "I think she wants to talk about your future, Kyle. So what do you really want to do?" I asked, genuinely curious about his aspirations. After thinking about it, Kyle finally made up his mind. "I'd like to go to Noble and Greenway School." "All right," I said, smiling warmly. "Leave it to Grandma. You'll make it to the U.S. men's team for sure." Vicky, who had been listening intently, chimed in with encouragement. "And I'll make it onto the U.S. women's team." "You could definitely make it, Kyle." Kyle smiled but teased her gently. "You still have a long way to go though, Vicky. That's why I'm going to practice a lot. I'm even thinking about going to Noble and Greenway Middle School," Vicky replied, her determination shining through. "Me too. It'd be great if we could go there together." Kyle agreed, though his voice held a hint of uncertainty. I couldn't help but chuckle at the exchange. "Come on, kiddo, you're a bit dense. Get a clue about Vicky's feelings," I thought to myself. Then I said aloud, "Anyway, dinner's almost ready. How about we call it a day?" "Okay," Vicky said with a smile. "All right then, Kyle's grandma. Goodbye." Vicky waved as she headed home. That evening, after a mostly silent dinner, Lizzie finally broached the subject that had been hanging in the air. "So Bella, you said you'd support Kyle. What does that mean exactly? Talk is cheap, you know." "Well, firstly, getting him the soccer gear he needs," I began. "And I guess Kyle wants to go to Noble and Greenway School. It's a private school, so it's going to cost quite a bit." Lizzie seemed to be processing my words, and I felt a bit relieved when she responded, "If you're supporting him, then the least you could do is help with tuition. So I'll just say it. Please move out." "Excuse me?" I exclaimed, taken aback. Lizzie pressed on, her voice growing more assertive. "The owner of this apartment is your son Clive, right? Which means we have the right to tell tenants to leave. I can't tolerate your interference in our lives anymore, Bella." "Really? You sure you want to say that to me? What's gotten into you, acting all tough?" I asked, trying to rein in my frustration, but it was time to stop Lizzie's nonsense. "Are you really saying all this for Kyle? Weren't you losing the mom rivalry at his elementary school, getting jealous that a rival mom's kid is going to a top private middle school? So now you're pushing Kyle to go to Phillips Academy." Lizzie's face flushed as I continued. "Plus, I've heard you've been overspending on clothes, jewelry, lunches, and parties. So you're short on money and want me to cover tuition, right?" "Gosh dang it," Lizzie muttered, clearly agitated. "I heard you've been secretly using credit cards, even borrowing from sketchy sources to make the payments," I added, my voice firm. "How did you?" Lizzie stammered, her composure slipping. "Just like you have mom friends, I have grandma friends. We gossip about our daughters-in-law and sons. And let's just say I'm the boss grandma around here. News travels fast in this neighborhood. Don't underestimate seniors. We can use smartphones too, you know." Lizzie's frustration was palpable as she muttered again, "Gosh dang it. What's the big deal? Clive inherited from Grandpa, and he owns this apartment. A little reckless spending won't hurt us." Lizzie shot back, trying to regain control. Just then, Kyle spoke up. "Hold on, Mom. You're mistaken." "Kyle." Lizzie looked surprised. "I could hear you because you were arguing so loudly while I was trying to study," Kyle said, sitting down and crossing his legs, looking quite exasperated. "What is he, an old man?" I thought, amused by his serious demeanor. "What's this mistake you're talking about? Kids shouldn't interfere in adult conversations," Lizzie scolded him. "But you're fighting about me, right? I'm involved, so I should get a say," Kyle countered, his voice steady. "Don't you talk back to me," Lizzie snapped, but Kyle remained calm. All right, he said, placating her. "But Mom, you've got it wrong on several fronts." "What are you talking about?" What's wrong? Lizzie asked, her voice faltering. Listen, Dad isn't the landlord of this apartment. The landlord is Grandma. Dad told me. That's how I know. Kyle explained. Seriously. Lizzie's face drained of color. And Dad knows about the money issue too. He said we'll be out of credit soon, Kyle added. Oh, that's a problem, Lizzie muttered, her panic growing. Exactly. So there it is. I always knew you were bad with money. But I didn't expect you to be in debt, Kyle said bluntly. At that moment, Clive walked in looking somber. Yes, Mom told me all about it recently. After a lot of thought, this is what I've decided, he said, handing over divorce papers. Lizzie stared at the papers, her face pale. I can't live with you anymore. I don't want Kyle around a mother who's using him to keep up appearances. Both Kyle and my mom agree. I don't want to be with someone who sees me as just a tool either. I'm good as long as I have Grandma and Dad, Clive said, his voice resolute. Hearing this from her husband and child, Lizzie hung her head, speechless. So we're getting a divorce. I'll split the assets fairly, but I can't cover the debt you've accumulated. That's on you, Clive continued. But as for the inheritance from my father, I won't get much since Mom is still alive. And don't you dare shatter Kyle's dreams for the sake of your ego. A parent's job is to push their children forward, not hold them back. Bam. Decision made. Lizzie sat down as if the wind had been knocked out of her. A while later, the divorce became official, and Lizzie moved out of the apartment. She's reportedly working in a factory in Idaho to pay back a suspicious loan. She's broke and surviving on potatoes. Karma is real. She's being saved by the Idaho potatoes she once mocked. When fall came around, Kyle started school at Noble and Greenway, just as he had hoped. Kyle, who had been a soccer star since elementary school, was welcomed warmly. Vicky also made it into the same school. Congratulations on getting in, Vicky. It's great you'll be at the same school as Kyle, I said, genuinely happy for her. Thank you. Because you encouraged me, I was able to work hard. Thank you so much, Vicky replied, her gratitude evident. You did it because you worked hard. So are you joining the girls' soccer team? I asked. No, it seems a bit much for me, but I plan on becoming the boys' team manager, Vicky answered, her voice shy but excited. Well, that sounds good too. Please take care of Kyle, I said, feeling a sense of pride. Yes, of course, Vicky said, blushing as she looked down. Ah, the beginning of their teenage years. Hey, Vicky, let's go sign up for the soccer club. Kyle called out. Coming, Vicky replied, hugging me quickly before running off. Well, Kyle, you go chase your dreams. I hope you'll win the World Cup while I'm still around. That way, I can brag about you to Grandpa, I thought as I watched them go, feeling a deep sense of contentment.